Hi, this is Kelly Glick. This is my EDL 853 case presentation. We're going to go ahead and get started right away and get into just the case summary of what's happened historically up until this point and where we're at right now. So this is the case of Miguel, who was a star football player and in fact his family moved the whole family from another area so that he could play with this award-winning team. And he was in fact a star on the team, and then due to an injury in a football game, ended up paralyzed and was returning to school a couple months after going through rehabilitation. His parents noted that he had no cognitive disabilities but did need accommodations related to using a wheelchair and accessibility to classes. So currently, Ms. Guzman, the counselor, had decided to pull Miguel from a college prep biology class that he was scheduled for and replace it with another non-college prep science course because the building that has biology in is not accessible to wheelchairs. So at this point, we have the parents and Miguel's attorney insisting that the school has violated Section 504 and that Miguel should immediately be returned to his college prep biology class. So there are some legal and ethical issues. First of all, Section 504 states that an individual has a disability if in fact they have a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits a major life activity or bodily function, and that includes movement. And it also states that school districts are required to ensure that students and others with disabilities, including parents, are not denied access to the school's programs or activities because of inaccessible facilities, including academic buildings. So in that case, with that definition, what we're looking at is really Mrs. Guzman denying accessibility, which is against Section 504 because of wheelchair inaccessibility to a building. So even in the section, what it states is that then the school is required to move the classroom to an accessible location, especially if the building is old enough that it doesn't necessarily have to, by law, be up to accessibility codes. So the legal and ethical issues involved is that indeed Miguel meets the definition of having a disability according to Section 504, and his rights to a free and appropriate public education have been denied by moving him to a lesser class instead of making his class accessible for him. And so let's just see what we decided to do next about that. Kind of the simple statement of what's happening. Miguel's FAPE rights under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 were violated when he was denied access to a college prep biology class because the room was inaccessible by a wheelchair. So when we look at all the facts of this case, what we're looking at, first of all, who are the people? Obviously, his parents are involved, the counselor's involved, the principal, the attorney. The one thing is that repeatedly throughout 504 Section 504 law, it talks about needing a 504 coordinator assigned to every school. And in this case, not one point in the case study was anything mentioned about a 504 coordinator. The other piece that I'm curious whether it plays into this whole situation or not is him being a star athlete. It's just interesting that he was kind of such a hero, and I think it's really pertinent that we don't know what happened when his accident happened, if the whole school rallied and did fundraisers, if he was welcomed back as a hero, although it sounds like he was indeed. And so this is a very visible person and somebody who potentially is a leader, whether he's got a disability or not. And so I think that's also a valid fact. Can't quite tell where the school's located. It sounds like the student is in general education and that this is a public school, but don't know that for sure. Don't know what grade he's in or if there's other programs he qualifies for reasons outside of his disability. We don't know how many counselors are available in the school, what the demographics are, what the race, age of this student is, and of the other population of the school. So I think even though those aren't necessary in order to determine if 504 rights were violated or not, they would be interesting in trying to piece together a plan for what happens next. As far as prioritized facts, we do know that basically this could be a media nightmare because the school did violate the 504 rights of a school hero who was injured playing football for the school. and could have been a start in the future as well. And we know that all students could be impacted if this is not handled correctly. So other students are watching like, oh, this is how we treat people with disabilities, or oh, like you're less than or have access to less than. I think that the other piece is we don't know if the counselor knew about protocols or was trained in those, and was just doing her own thing, or she just lacked knowledge. So that's kind of a big deal as well when you're talking about school culture, principals' control over staff, and everyone's kind of operating as a team to protect students' rights. So what we don't know is Miguel's voice is nowhere in this scenario, which is a really big deal. We hear about what his parents and attorney want, but not what he wants. We don't know how likely the parents are to sue or file some kind of complaint or grievance. We don't know any issues about the counselor or any prevention efforts that have taken place or not taken place in the school. Have there been trainings about 504s and what they mean and how to protect the rights of those? And is there a 504 coordinator involved that's responsible for some of that? So that's another piece. When we start talking about options and potential consequences, I feel like we have 4 options in this case. One is status quo. Keep things as is, see what happens with the attorney. It seems to me that this is a really poor option, but the truth is everyone can just kind of hide out and pretend things are fine and let the attorney do what he or she is going to do. Another option 2, would be to allow due process to happen. Obviously, parents and kids have rights, and they could ask for a hearing to force the school to change their decision on the class placement for science. The other option, number 3, is for the principal just to go ahead and reverse that decision, knowing that 504 and FAPE rights have been violated, to just go ahead and move that biology class to an accessible location. Sounds like there are some buildings in the campus that were up to code and changed, and in that case, this class should be moved to one of those. And the 4th is to add a bit of a human piece to this. If we really care about this kid, we want to hear what he wants, and we also want to apologize to him and his parents. So I know sometimes attorneys don't like when people apologize because it feels like an admission of guilt. But in this case, if we really care about kids and parents, it seems necessary to reverse the decision of where the room goes and to add an apology, and to also meet with Miguel individually to talk about what he's going to need right now and in the future to accommodate his needs. So when we're looking at all these, I didn't even include option 1 on this because it seems ridiculous to just wait for litigation. That's not very proactive. Option 2, again, the school's in the wrong. It looks like it could absolutely lead to a complaint or some kind of grievance. And so hoping it just goes away doesn't seem like a very good idea, and it doesn't really make the school a great place for kids or students of all ability levels. So we're going to get rid of option 2 and just say, why wait on this one? On option 3, to go ahead and comply with Section 504 makes sense. Absolutely, the biology class needs to be moved instead of Miguel being moved. Miguel needs to be re-enrolled in biology. And then option 4 is taking option 3 and adding again that human component. So moving biology class to an acceptable location, but also training all staff, that all counselors, 504 coordinator, whoever is involved, administrators, on what 504 requirements are, what the law says, what schools are required to do, and then meeting with Miguel and apologizing is just super important. Getting his voice in the room, welcoming him back in more than just what football is about, but welcoming him back as a human being and as a student is also necessary. Just as an added note, I know that parents can file a grievance with the 504 coordinator, and they could also file a complaint through the Federal Office of Civil Rights. And so those are the things that not only do we want to avoid, but we also want to welcome the student back and make sure that every student feels like they're welcome and that their needs are met and that this is an inclusive place to be. So in making the decision, I like this quote, it's not how we make mistakes, but how we correct them that defines us. So the decision really is option 4. And this includes getting Miguel's lived experience in the conversation, also complying with Section 504 and training staff so no more harm is done. The risk of civil rights complaints still exists, but it does with the other options as well. And I think most parents react out of fear that their child will be forgotten or mistreated now that they have a disability. I think this can be de-escalated by joining together to make a reasonable plan for their student, and apologizing for any distress caused to the student is the ethical response. As a principal, I would want to model how to be genuine, admit mistakes, and work hard to build trust, just like I would expect my staff and my students to do as well. In order to implement this, he would be reinstated in his biology class. The class would be moved to an accessible location. A mandatory training regarding 504 guidelines would be provided to the pertinent staff, and that could include either using someone in-house or asking someone from the state or somewhere in the district to come and train. And then a written apology and an individual meeting with Miguel, and perhaps several meetings to check on his ongoing process. So initially, when I did this case study, I didn't have a slide for standard integration, but it was so important to me to think about an inclusive culture because yes, we can correct the 504 violation, but it's just so important to get the student voice in this case, and to also just figure out how do we need to change the culture. Like, what led up to Miss Gooseman thinking it was okay to put him in a lesser class? And so I would really, as a principal, want to talk to students and empower students and staff to perhaps start some kind of awareness campaign, but all of this under Miguel's direction, because if he wanted to not have any more attention drawn to what was happening for him, then that would need to be respected. If he's a leader and out in front and sort of a public figure in the school as he was as a football player, then it may be that he can work together with a group of students who makes it their mission to make sure that other students understand how difficult living with disabilities is, and everyone can work together to make their school more accessible and inclusive. So here I've created a list of all the possibilities that I could think of that a school and an administrator could possibly head, but then or initiate, but then delegate to empower students to really be in charge of this. So ideas include doing some simulations of what it's like to be in a wheelchair, or doing some kind of an awareness campaign, providing some different kinds of trainings, or bringing in community members that have similar disabilities to share their experiences and their stories. So in that way, I believe that is how I would look at a bigger picture moving forward, designing and implementing a school culture that was inclusive and equitable for all. So in summary, I just really truly believe that we take care of people and relationships first. While we're committed to following laws and policies, we ensure that our staff are adequately prepared for their jobs. In this case, if Miguel needs to be moved to another counselor and that's an option, then that is absolutely what we would do. And that's how we work to build safe and inclusive culture for all students, because however we treat the one that has the most challenges amongst us, that reflects on how we treat everyone. So here are some of the resources that I accessed to read a little more about Section 504, the laws and responsibilities on schools. And my ending quote is that education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and have a great day.